A total of 153 candidates are vying for 90 seats in Hong Kong's Legislative Council election this Sunday. Now, the government says it will be a competitive race with every constituency being contested for the first time. Now, those seeking a spot in one of the 10 geographical constituencies will face a tough battle, especially for non-establishment hopefuls. 35 candidates are campaigning for 20 seats, the only ones the public gets to vote for. In the trade-based functional constituencies, a group of young first-timers is looking to unseat pro-Beijing veterans. Now, more than half are fresh-faced and a third younger than 50. The remaining 40 lawmakers will be selected by the pro-Beijing election committee. Now, all the candidates have passed a new vetting process by a government-led panel, so most are pro-establishment as expected. Hoping to win big, Hong Kong's largest pro-Beijing party, DAB, is fielding more than a dozen candidates, helmed by incumbent lawmaker Starry Lee. Regina Ip of the New People's Party is also seeking a re-election. But about a dozen non-establishment hopefuls have also cleared the hurdle. Among them, Mandy Tam, a former opposition party member who had posted protest slogans on social media. Also in the running, former Pan-Democrat and Civic Party founding member Ronnie Tong. Only 3 candidates identified themselves as pro-democracy. They include Nelson Wong, who was ousted from the Democratic Party for supporting Beijing-backed political reforms. There are no contenders, though, from the city's major opposition parties, including the largest one, Hong Kong Democratic Party. Most have decided to boycott the polls. Many leading pro-democracy figures have either been jailed, banned from running, or have fled the territory. Well, several pro-democracy groups have also disbanded, bowing to government pressure. They include Hong Kong Alliance and the city's largest independent trade union, HKCTU. Still, government officials say the mix of LegCo hopefuls offers a balanced representation. Well, let's dig deeper with Andrew Leung, China specialist at Andrew Leung International Consultants. He joins us live. Ms. Leung, how justified are the criticisms that LegCo will become nothing more than a rubber stamp parliament?
Well, this is an over-exaggeration because this current election is no less than a relaunch of one country, two systems. Beijing has seen for the past 23 years how one country, two system has been allowed to work almost, with a completely free hand. But then towards the last 3 years, the so-called pro-democratic camp is using the anti-succession bill and holding Hong Kong's law and order to ransom with invested violence, in fact, hatching an open plot to seize control of the legislature, to paralyze the legislature, and openly declare that they would veto each and every proposal so as to hold the Hong Kong government to ransom, to overthrow the existing system, and to seize control. And above all, they are also allied, or if not, they're working together with the pro-independence kind of separatists. Again, many of them have become violent activists. And the whole thing is being seen as aided and abetted by foreign forces. So Beijing was forced into enacting the national security law and to revamp the whole legislature to make sure that only Hong Kong national patriots can take part in the key organs of government. And that's what happened. But having said that, only, as you highlighted in the introduction, only one would-be candidate was disqualified for certain key conditions.
Mr. Leung, pardon me for cutting in, Mr. Leung. Let me re-ask that question and not use the pejorative term rubber stamp parliament. As my colleague mentioned, there are no contenders from the major opposition parties. You have only 3 candidates who will openly identify as being pro-democracy. So whether or not we want to call them pro or anti-democracy, you've got far less heterogeneity in this Legislative Council, which will eventually be elected. And with fewer voices, you are going to have a very different legislative council. Therefore, more or less opposition to certain types of legislative processes. I think what my colleague was trying to ask you, does this change how the LegCo supervises government action in Hong Kong with the lack of with more homogeneity and less heterogeneity?
Well, it certainly changes the rhetoric, because the rhetoric of democracy was, as I explained in the beginning, rested on a plot to seize control of the government, to paralyze the legislature in contravention of Hong Kong's main constitution. Certainly, there will be less voice or even people dare to really threaten the very foundation of Hong Kong's basic law. But that doesn't mean that there will be no opposition, because you can see that there are different new faces, and even in the establishment parties, they're fielding new candidates. And then there are lots of issues on which the government needs to be held to account. In fact, what seizes the attention of Beijing is that there are so many deep-seated social and economic problems: inequality, housing, the lack of upward movement, the powerful vested interest in the property sector, the financial sector, and so on and so forth. All these issues touch on the very livelihood and the aspirations of the people. And so there's a lot of agenda where the government can be held to account. And you can see that there are different candidates, there are independent candidates, and even there are two Caucasian contenders who have given up their foreign passport.
Absolutely, Mr. Leung. But whatever the case, there will be all eyes will be on Hong Kong in the next few days. How does this, well, some might describe it as uncertainty, others turbulence in Hong Kong, affect other parts of Asia?
Well, of course, all eyes will be in Hong Kong, not only for the next couple of days, would be the next couple of years even. As I said, this is no less than a relaunch of one country, two systems, because for the past 23 years, a lot of the people in Hong Kong have forgotten about the one country. Not only that, is allied with kind of pro-independence, separatist forces, aided and abetted by foreign powers, and threaten the very sovereignty as in the eyes of Beijing. So this is a complete revamp. And of course, all eyes will be Hong Kong. But as far as the society is concerned, having experienced this violent, infested protest myself, I can see that law and order has returned. And indeed, the businesses need stability. And of course, Hong Kong is being held up high in the connection with the Greater Bay Area. And Hong Kong will continue is expected to continue to play a very important role in China's trajectory in realizing the China dream, using Hong Kong as an international outpost. Right. So under the one country, two systems. After all, the Hong Kong's law is still highly regarded by the international community and by businesses. And Hong Kong will certainly play a very important role.
Thanks for the contribution there. Andrew Leung, China Specialist at Andrew Leung International Consultants.